All right, now that it's officially December, Donald Trump's cabinet starting to really take shape before he becomes president next month. And there are big talks of Oklahoma representation within this new administration. So joining us to chat about names being chosen and tossed around right now is Pam Pollard, the chair of the Oklahoma Republican Party. As always, thank you for being with us here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You know, everything's really starting to unfold here. Closed door talks are being had. A lot of different names being thrown around. But before we get to those names, talk about what an honor or what feelings you have that so many of Oklahoma's leaders are being mentioned in this new presidency.
Absolutely right. You know, and this is a nonpartisan issue. This is Oklahoma pride. We have so many high quality leaders in every field you can think of. We have people in the business community, oil and gas, people in medical research that are being looked at, medical doctors being looked at to take leadership positions. We should be proud as Oklahomans.
We'll get to all of those names in just a couple of minutes. We're talking about Scott Pruitt, T.W. Shannon, just Harold Hamm, and want to get with Governor Mary Fallin. That's the big one that we're tossing around right now, and she has been named as one of the 13 vice chairs to Trump's transition team. First of all, how often do you speak with the governor on just herself? How often do you guys talk?
We text pretty frequently.
Okay, so how is she feeling about taking on this role? I'm sure she's pretty excited. And then secondly, the role of Secretary of the Interior, that one is obviously not confirmed, but how would she feel about taking on that role in the official cabinet?
Well, the governor has been chairman of the National Governors Association. When she was lieutenant governor, she was chair of that association. She's been chair of several other organizations while she is governor. So now that she is released her chairmanship of all other positions, to be given another committee is just another one of the duties in a governor's life. So she has plenty of time to work on her legislative agenda as well as take on this secondary duty. As far as the honor, I texted her soon after the word was announced, and she said, "I'm very excited." She says, "I don't know any facts yet, but I'm very honored and very excited that they would name me to the transition team." She was a little surprised about it.
Okay.
So.
And, you know, with her being one of these 13 vice chairs for the transition team, we had a lot of viewers write in and say, what exactly does that ask of her? What does that even mean to be a vice chair? What will her duties be during this time?
Well, when I talked with the governor, she said she wasn't sure what her specific duties would be, but working with the governor's transition team when she was first elected and a little bit of experience from other presidential and other campaigns, it's twofold. Number one, it's having a say-so in who is actually selected, or maybe the top three that is sent to Mr. Trump, because as we all can tell, Mr. Trump runs the show, so he is going to make the final decisions. But the second part that's extremely important, that the transition team also goes and talks to current administration, talks to the workers in those departments, and find out what they are doing so that they can help transition to the new people, whoever are selected. So it's a continuity of the job descriptions as well.
I was asked this, does she get paid an additional amount to be on the transition team?
No, but her expenses will be paid.
Expenses will be paid. And then how much time will this take away from her duties as governor? I mean, what would you say to a concerned Oklahoman who says, she's our governor and now she's taking on this? I mean, that's a huge responsibility.
It is. Well, as chairman of the National Governors Association, she was in charge of all 50 state governors and organizing them, helping to organize the legislation. So taking on a role in a transition team seems to me just to almost be like a parallel transition over to being another leader, helping with 50 states. Now, there are 4,000 appointments that are going to be made, so it is a large job, but I think it speaks to the governor's expertise in several fields. As far as within the state of Oklahoma, I was at the Capitol all day. I think it was on Tuesday, meeting with people. There's a lot of work going on at the Capitol. The governor has set her agenda and now is reaching out to the House and the Senate to work with them. And one thing I will say, that we're going to have a very close relationship between the new Speaker of the House, the new Senate Pro Tem, and the governors. So I can tell Oklahomans firsthand that I've spoken with each one of those leaders, and everyone is working very hard, and we don't have to worry about Governor Fallin, her time being divided amongst that. It's on full steam ahead right now.
Okay, and we had a ton of people chime in, and let's talk hypotheticals here.
Okay.
If she were to be offered Secretary of the Interior, and she took it. What does that mean for her? Does Todd Lamb take over? Can she do both? What does the future of Oklahoma look like if she were to accept that role?
If she were to accept that role, she cannot do both, but she would most likely to continue as governor until the Senate confirms her. That is a position that must be confirmed by the United States Senate as well. Now, there's some talks that the Senate may go into session on the same day as the inauguration, as soon as Mr. Trump becomes president, to confirm especially these high-level cabinet positions. So after she's confirmed from the Senate, her resignation would become in effect. At that time, by our state constitution, our lieutenant governor would take over. And then the lieutenant governor would appoint, which is now the new governor, would appoint a new lieutenant governor.
Okay.
And is that an extension of the Mary Fallin administration? How would they be different, if Todd Lamb does take over her spot?
I see a lot of similarities, but Todd Lamb has such vast experience, different than what Governor Fallin's was. Todd Lamb has, as lieutenant governor and even as senator, made it a goal of his to travel to all 77 counties every single calendar year. So he's a man who when I say prides himself, he really is concerned about the citizens of Oklahoma. He wants to hear from them, and he's made a concerted, pointed effort to go out and listen to them. So I think he will be very closely tied to the wishes of the citizens of Oklahoma. I think it'll be good for Oklahoma.
Of course, you said this is hypothetical. This has not happened yet, but we are hearing multiple reports that Governor Fallin is one of the top potential picks for Secretary of the Interior. And you said you guys do talk a lot. You text all the time. Would she take it? What do you think? Would she be hesitant to uproot her life and move to Washington, or would she be chomping at the bit to get this position?
Well, I'm not sure about chomping at the bit, but the opportunity to serve our country, I would have to leave the final decision to Governor Fallin. But I would say that if she was not interested in it, she would not have allowed her name to continue this far. So I think that when you're in public service, you really we're kind of odd ducks in a way, but you really do think about who you're trying to help as opposed to some of the sacrifices you make. The sacrifices you make aren't nearly as weighing on your heart as the benefits you think that you can provide to the citizens, and in this case, the entire country.